How do you know it's
Are you
allergy
sure
season?
it's not like a part of me?
Yeah, yours.
This side or this side?
It's this side. You got it now.
Stop
but you
pointing at yourself.
This one. This one.
You've now pointed at both of your eyes.
Are you mirroring David, or are you like
Look,
his
point
left
at
or
me.
right? His left
That
or
one.
right?
Okay.
There we go.
There we go. We got it finally. Oops. Welcome to the Gathering
How you
Greenhouse,
interact with
a
others
podcast to
really
grow
tells
together.
people a lot about you.
About John?
What's about me?
You said about John?
No, I said about you.
About me.
Yeah.
You know, people like
That's,
me.
Not just
I'm,
you.
I'm a very
I'm not talking
likable
about
person.
you personally. I'm saying just people in general. How they interact with others is maybe the best.
I'm trying to help you. I always try to help people when they come in.
Did you do the
church.
introduction yet?
I did it already.
Oh, okay.
But like when someone comes in, like sometimes
Is
women
this
will
live?
have like lipstick on their teeth, and I always try to just be like, hey, just so you know, you got some of that on your teeth. Like because I want someone to do the same thing
That's
for
why
me.
you got to have the. It's either the 2-minute rule or the 5-minute rule, depending on
gotta
how you
say
want to
it
do
quick.
it.
Yeah, you
like
can't-
If they can't fix it in under like 2 minutes, don't say anything. But if they can,
Right.
you ought to. You know?
Well, there's certain things where like you got to be careful on the face because it could be like a birthmark or something. So I generally don't say anything about that. You know, I don't want anyone to
you got
hurt
a big
anyone's
pimple
feelings.
there. Like, oh,
Yeah,
thanks.
I'm not going to say that kind of stuff. But, you know, if it's something obvious, I like to help people out. I feel like people appreciate that.
Yeah, you can say, hey, you've got something in your teeth,
Yeah.
but you can't say, hey, you need braces. Like those
Right.
are they're-
Right, exactly. Why did you leave the house in that? Okay, so we have some questions we're going to get to today about the sermon series that we're working
Right
through.
now?
Well, no, not yet. I'm just kind of telling people what we're going to be.
It's like a table
doing
of
today.
contents?
Yeah, table of contents. So what to expect today?
Can we make it clickable
We can't.
No, we can't.
in
It's
the
not
show
possible.
notes?
In the notes, yeah, we could
Can AI do that for us?
probably.
I'm just gonna go on record that I don't think AI, like with their video editing, is ready yet.
No. It's AI is just a helper right now.
So I'm like people who look at this channel,
Yeah.
and like they see our shorts, and John doesn't know I'm going to talk about this, but I'm going to rage for a minute.
On AI.
Yeah.
Did I bring up the wrong topic
So
this morning
no,
or the
here's
right
thing.
topic?
So if you look at the Gathering channel, you know we put out these shorts, right?
Yeah.
And I think AI has been doing some of the work on that for us.
Oh, okay.
And it's doing
Well, there's-
bad work.
What?
Like I have to keep sending messages to John. It's like, hey, this got cut off at the wrong place.
One of those was AI. The other was a YouTube issue. So,
Oh, okay.
yeah. There was one.
But
bad
YouTube is probably
edit.
being run by AI by this
YouTube is
point.
probably being run. But we had a weird upload.
We
where
know
it
Twitter
uploaded
is.
part of the clip and not the whole thing. But yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
All right. I'm
You
done. I'm
done raging.
I'm
well,
done raging.
I would love
That's about
to
as
have,
mad as I get.
I would love to have a deeper conversation about AI. Not because
It's
it's
the
a hot
Antichrist.
Not because it's a hot topic, but because of implications like that. Because of all the not only good, but the really bad
We're
implications.
going to say
that are
that
possible.
AI is, literally stands for anti-Emmanuel spelled with an I. Is that like,
Nice. Never thought of that before, but yes. Yes.
It's right on the nose.
Well, I have
Right.
a little bit more lighthearted questions to start.
I mean,
out
we
with.
could go into depth about this. How,
I want to.
How that,
I do, at some
in
point.
Genesis 3,
Maybe not today, but
Satan leads with, you will be like God. And I think it'd be cool to do a study, like maybe even a whole sermon series on how his strategy from that moment on has always been to convince humanity that they are like God. And you think about what that entails is it means that also they don't need God, right? Because they are like God and they can do what God can do. And now we have this AI thing, which is the very closest we've ever come to being able to create like a living sentient being.
Well-
and so now this is like our ability to create.
Yeah.
We are now like God. So,
yes. Can I make one argument
Yeah,
to that of something that else that is maybe even closer?
I thought we weren't discussing this today.
Well, you
Too late.
bring it up.
We're in.
You brought up. Hopefully, we
AI.
have time to get to our lighthearted questions because I was curious what you thought. But so cloning. Remember that was a really hot topic in the early 2000s.
what was the pig's name? There was a pig.
I
Right,
remember the
so
sheep.
you could.
Yes, it was a sheep.
You could
It was a sheep. It
argue.
wasn't a pig.
You could argue that was closer to actually creating I know that you still need...
because that was different. Because that was
just
simply
replicating.
taking what had already been created and making more of it.
I know, but then the world kind of got together and like they kind of made the little bit of a pact to like how far to take that. I'm sure there's countries that totally
the
disregarded
problem with
that,
AI
but-
versus cloning is there's very convenient things that come with AI. So it's going to be a much harder, my life was not impacted by cloning. It is already impacted by AI greatly. So it's going to be harder once people are hooked to be like, oh, we probably shouldn't have messed with that. But
Yeah. I think there's a pretty significant difference in the concept of DNA, because cloning is really just taking the DNA that's already created. So the basic essential building block of the clone was already made, whereas AI. I mean, at some point, you can go back and say, well, yeah, we started with something, but AI, humanity has built it from ground up. Like they created the technology, they created the microchip, all this stuff that is the building blocks.
But I could still make the argument that.
But will you?
I don't know. I'm just saying there could be an argument made that these
it.
were gifts by God that were given to us to create those things.
Oh, sure.
And you could make the argument of like those materials and those resources that were used were also created by God.
Yeah.
So
of course.
So
we're on the same page on that.
Okay.
my big objection is Emperor Palpatine used the clone army.
Who invited this guy?
I don't know. We just came in and there was another
Palpatine used
camera.
the clone army to kill all the Jedis, and that was not a good thing.
Remember when we were having a
Yes.
good conversation?
I
That
think
was
it
several
became-
podcasts ago.
That was several podcasts.
Like episode 2.
Yeah. No, I agree with you
Yeah.
that in fact that probably also goes back to Genesis 3.
Right.
Where, Satan's whole temptation was to take God's gifts and misuse them.
And ultimately we can't do anything outside of the realm of like physics which God created. Like we can't break the laws of nature in order to create things and do things. So it's all very orderly. We're just following the order that God has given us in life. So I mean, there's still a lot of things that you could say that like, but I mean, I hear your argument, see it. I think I'm just adding pieces to it. I agree with you. There's a lot of things that make me cautious about AI. But there's no stopping it.
Rightfully so.
There's no stopping it.
Well, no, Elon has already said that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's here.
Yeah. The only question now is, how quickly will we get to Eagle Eye, and then how quickly will we get to the Matrix? That's
Eagle Eye is
That's
a
the only
Bond?
question.
James Bond?
No. That's GoldenEye.
That's GoldenEye.
Eagle Eye, like the robot puts everybody on a list, and it's like, oh, these people are potential terrorists.
Oh,
Let's
okay.
take them out.
Okay. I thought there might be a Terminator reference because that's the one I always think
Even
of.
Steven's in that one.
Okay.
Who?
I forget his Shia LaBeouf.
Yeah.
Whatever his name is.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. No, Terminator is another good reference there.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, that was a good podcast.
Good podcasts. So
This clip was edited by AI.
it was. Okay. So question here. Maybe we'll just go right into we'll just use that as our intro. We'll go into our discussion questions for today, which are based on the sermon series.
Wait, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
We're not going to have any fun? That's not my question. That is a question, but it's not
Yeah.
my question. We're not going to have any fun today?
What do you mean by fun?
What, we usually have something.
I did, but like the past couple podcasts, I did something like that. So, I don't try to do the same thing every time, but I did have an idea that I didn't. I decided not to do it though. You would have liked it. You will like it whenever I do it.
I could have brought some bacon wraps with cake
Yeah, I
rolls.
could have. We should have tried that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
John?
You want me to go get him?
No, I don't.
I'm in.
No, I've had.
How many have you had?
No comment. All right, I have a
Did they
question.
get-
I have a question for you though.
Yes.
Because you always ask the question, so I'm bringing
Right.
the question.
Okay. Yeah.
today.
What's the question?
All right. So the question is, if you can only have one song running through your head for the rest of your life, and it's always going to be running through your head, you can't stop it.
Yeah.
What's the song?
I would probably have a worship song running in my head. I'm trying to think of which one is my favorite one that John leads and sings. honestly, like I like music, but I in the same sense I like music and I don't really care that much. Like if the radio's on in my car, I'll just let it play. So I'm gonna pick a worship song from John.
You didn't pick it though. You got to pick a song. It's got to be an actual song.
Okay, John, what's your favorite one?
For you?
No, for your favorite one you sing on.
You're gonna dedicate a song
My
to
favorite
Steve.
one
This one's going out to Steve, the
So,
pastor of connections
I
at the
was just
gathering.
thinking I would pick Abide.
Yeah.
The one
I
we
like
do.
Abide, okay.
Just because I think it's
a good one.
Like of all the ones we do, that's the best one to just kind of like keep going through your head.
Well, it's kind of like the whole. That's what abide means,
is, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Yeah.
kind of.
So I like the Beatles.
See, I'd go
I like
with
the Beatles a
Bohemian
lot.
Rhapsody.
That's a good one too. I like.
Well,
I like
it's long,
yeah,
so you know
that's a good one.
Yeah.
I like the Beatles a lot too.
Yeah.
I could listen to almost.
Like, what's
all
your
their
favorite
stuff.
Beatles song? Have we talked about this
maybe
before?
Yesterday. I have so many
Well, no,
Beatles
today.
songs. Like, well, yeah, I mean their song Yesterday. You know,
Okay,
What
well, I
song
don't
was
know
like
what you
Troubles
listened to
feel
yesterday.
so far
but-
away. You know that one.
Okay.
It's like when I'm feeling
So,
sad.
My
put that on.
my kid this morning, he got some new clothes, and one of them's a Beatles shirt, and he was so excited. He's like, "I want to wear a Beatles shirt," and he was thinking the Bugs, not the Beatles, and the disappointment on his face was pretty heartbreaking.
Yeah.
I like Bob Seger a lot too. He's pretty good.
Okay. Yeah.
Are you listening to?
Have you ever heard
I
the
don't listen to
version
music.
of Yesterday
You don't listen to music?
that is Leprosy instead of Yesterday?
No, I haven't.
It's pretty good because I don't want to sing it because we don't want to drive the numbers down. But it goes Leprosy. All my skin is falling off of me. I'm not half the guy I used to be since I contracted leprosy.
I don't even know where to go from there. I'm not even sure.
How about a joke?
I ran into there was
Did you hear did you hear they had to stop the Lepers hockey game?
I did not.
Yeah, there was a face-off in the corner.
Gosh.
Oh boy.
Well, when I was in India, there were people with leprosy there.
Well, I know it's not a funny
Still
thing.
around.
It's not
Still
a funny thing, but there's
exists.
some funny jokes about it.
Yeah.
Like, what do you call 4 lepers in a hot tub?
No.
What?
No.
Stew.
We've taken a wrong turn here.
If you suffer from leprosy, we
are
really
sorry.
do care about
we
you.
apologize.
I actually just was listening yesterday to somebody who was preaching on the 10 lepers
Yeah.
and how, 9 of them didn't come back to thank Jesus,
Yeah.
but only 1 did. That's why it's on my mind. So
Yeah, leprosy is something I would not want to have at all.
What if
I've
you
heard-
had to pick a disease, Steve? Which one would you pick?
I like this question. Like, you have to have it.
That's a good question.
There's no good answer to this.
Yeah.
You're gonna offend somebody.
What's that? There's like a mouth sore one. That might not be so bad.
That sounds pretty bad.
Hoof and mouth.
Okay, let's go with this because Maria has she had
Whoa!
so she got TB from her mom from birth.
Yep.
So like it's dormant. So
Yeah.
and she doesn't have to do anything for it. So it seems pretty good one to have, honestly.
It's
I'm
pretty
sure
crazy.
I'm sure that it could cause problems
It's
later.
crazy the amount of diseases that
she didn't
50 years ago
yeah.
would have been an immediate life
Yeah.
sentence, and now
Yeah.
it's just like, yeah, you take this pill.
Yeah, her mom
mostly normal
her
life
mom
and-
died because of it.
Yeah.
But and when because she had it and they were born while she had it, they just got it because of birth.
Yeah.
It wasn't something she caught or anything, but she does have it.
Good podcast.
Yeah, we're getting morbid here. So let's
AI,
move
leprosy.
on.
Let's go.
Let's move on. We're just going to delete a whole chunk of the podcast today.
We can't, though, because this goes all the way back to the Beatles conversation.
I'm trying to bring it back around here. So here's some questions about the
That'd be a good
challenge.
title for a song.
It would be.
I'm trying to bring it back around
trying to
here.
bring it back around.
Can we write one like that, John?
Yep. Debuting next Sunday.
Sweet.
So is there any
I'm trying
connection?
to bring it back around here.
Is there any connection
you
between
need
our
to know
current
that you can
challenge
get down without fear.
and our current sermon series? Is there any connection between those two things?
Well, I'm sorry. I was.
Oh. Is there a connection between the
I
challenge
was not even listening.
and the sermon
I was
series?
lyricizing.
Yeah.
I still didn't hear the question.
Is there a connection between the sermon series and the challenge? Because we're doing this.
One more time.
We're doing
Can we try to rhyme for the rest of the podcast?
Can try. That's John's.
It'll all depend on the questions you ask.
He's a poet and didn't know it.
This is a tall task.
Where's my flask?
Nice.
Is there a connection between the current sermon series and the challenge that we're doing right now? Because we're doing a year-long
There is a
challenge
connection,
accepted.
and
Yeah.
I will tell you how.
Okay, let's hear this. What is it?
I just rhymed again.
Okay.
All right. So the challenge.
Yeah.
The challenge is being still, right?
Uh-huh.
And when you think of being a parent,
It's the opposite of that.
exactly. You think there is when you're a parent, it feels like this is the one time in life when I don't have 15 minutes to be still.
Right.
And
I do feel like that right now.
Right. Is that if you're a parent, especially of young children, this feels like such a gargantuan task that it's like, this is impossible. And I would argue that this is one of those things where the task that seems most difficult and most impossible might actually be most important.
Mm-hmm. It usually works out that way.
It often does. And so
does.
I would say to parents, if you're struggling with this idea of how do I possibly find 15 minutes in my day to be still because my kids are nuts, find it.
Yeah.
Right. So there's two times I can think of right off the bat where you can find it. One is at the beginning of the day, and one is at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Now that's tough because that means you got to get up before your kids, and that's not always easy to do because sometimes if you have early rising kids, that can be tough.
Or you're not a morning person, but
not a morning person.
I don't have a problem with the morning.
So maybe it's in the morning. So you just have to be disciplined and say, this is going to be important to me. I think if I can spend 15 minutes being still and just knowing God, that's going to help me be a better parent today. And it will.
Yeah.
So then it's worth getting up early. Or, you know what? I need to spend that 15 minutes at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And that's going to help me sleep and get me restored. So, I'm going to get the kids to bed. And before I turn on the TV, before I start surfing the interwebs, before I start scrolling all of the video shorts that AI has produced for the gathering, I'm gonna take my 15 minutes and be still. I think as a parenting habit, this is just a critical one.
Mm-hmm. And what is the expected outcome of if you do that?
I think
what benefit will you get out of it?
So we go back to, we were talking about the song Abide, right? And the whole point of abiding is to bear fruit. So this is what's at the core of abiding, is being still and knowing that He is God. So at a very general level, the answer is, well, your life will bear more fruit. But I think what it is that your life will begin to exhibit specifically some of the fruits of the Spirit. You'll have more peace. You'll have more patience. It will be easier for you to be kind. I think all of these things come out of just that just taking a minute and breathing, right? Because so much of life is hectic and crazy, and you're eliminating that for a short period of time and focusing on what's really important.
Yeah. So I wouldn't have taken it that way. I hear you're saying, I agree. I think those are all good things, but that wasn't where my mind went right away. See, I thought, like, to me, those things, for me personally, are more linked just to thankfulness. Like, the more I spend time with being grateful for what I have and my life and everything, is I am more, at peace. I am more kind. I am more generous when I have an attitude of thankfulness and gratitude. For me, it's I become a better listener. And it's when you're busy, you don't have time to listen because you're doing. So to me, like, it's really important. Like, we have to be in tune with God to be able to hear Him and let Him lead us in our lives. So the more we're quiet and at peace, the better we are going to be able to just to hear and tell the difference between what are the busyness voices in my head and what direction is God trying to lead me in.
Yep. I agree on all counts.
Okay.
Yep. That was easy.
That was easy. We got it. Good job. Okay. So on Sunday, you said that parents are the ones responsible for how their kids are taught. Okay. So then do you think that Christian parents should also then homeschool their kids, or where does that line drawn?
Wow. What do you think?
No, I would say no.
You don't think they should, or you don't think they all should?
I don't think that they have to.
Yes, that's
I don't
the
think they
key.
have to.
Yes.
I don't think there's anything wrong with homeschoolers.
I don't know why they're looking at me.
John is a, you know, I think you're a success story of the homeschool world.
I am a success story.
I think we need to just pause for a second and have a conversation about when we address John in the podcast.
Okay.
All right. Because here's the thing. No. Hey,
Don't look at him. Don't look at him. So I have to turn very.
I know that's why we got to talk about this.
Yeah.
All right. Because in this room, right, John is over there.
Yeah.
And Matt is producing over there.
He's texting someone right now.
But all right.
Oh, hey, Matt.
Oh, yeah, I got that one too.
But the people who are watching this are not in the room with us.
Yeah.
So we actually don't have to look at them. So when we look at John, we can actually look at the camera. And then, because Matt's just going to clip it to John anyways. Like right now, clip it to John.
Oh, look at that.
All right, and see now, bring it back to us. All right, see, so we can actually don't have to turn all the way to look at. You can just look at the camera if you want.
Just look at the camera.
Yeah. Plus, if you look at the camera, see, it's got that little screen down below it. Go cut to John for a second. Whoa, that's going to be really awkward.
Very
because
trippy.
you were moving as he was cutting.
Yeah.
All right, cut back to John for a second. Now, see, we can see him on the screen below the. Why are you looking over there?
I'm looking at the screen.
All right, so
I'm not looking at John. I'm looking at the screen there.
right now, okay, bring it back to us. All right, so there. All right, now what were we talking about?
So homeschool. We're talking about homeschoolers. That's how we got off topic here.
Yeah. Okay. So I think you're absolutely right that it's not an issue of what you have to do. It's an issue of what you can do. Right. I would say though, I think that today, there's more benefit in homeschooling your kids than there was 20 years ago.
I would agree. I would absolutely agree because I'm not gonna lie. This is no offense to homeschoolers.
Yeah, Mom.
No offense to homeschoolers. But growing up, which was like 20 years ago for me, is that the homeschoolers they were kind of off. Honestly, no offense, John.
Whenever you say no offense, you're about to offend somebody.
I know, but so let me finish before you comment.
So to all the lepers in the crowd,
and so they were a little bit off, and then since they led a very sheltered life, they were usually really crazy in college. Because they lived in this bubble,
kind of
especially
like when
Christian
the
home
Amish
kids.
do their thing where they
the Rumspringer. It's very similar to that.
You
Very
like
similar to
nailed that.
Well, my wife is involved with she has Amish in her background.
We've learned a lot about Maria on
Yeah.
this podcast.
Yeah, so I know a lot about Maria's dad was Amish when he was growing up.
Did she meet you when she was in?
They were Shirocks, so there's a Shirok, Koblenz. There's only like 5 last names in the Amish world.
That's not true.
There's a lot that are very, very similar. Yeah,
They're all named Yoder, right?
Yoder. That's a big one. Yeah,
I think it's just Yoder. That's all.
no, there's several. Shirok is a big one.
I have a good
Yoder,
friend whose
Hirschberger.
last name was Yoder.
Yeah.
He was a pastor in an Assembly of God church.
Okay.
So he was super charismatic. It's kind of strange because he grew up Amish.
Yeah.
Maybe Mennonite.
They're very similar.
Yeah.
The weird thing is about the Amish is they actually broke off from the Mennonites because they weren't conservative enough. You'd think it was the other way around. It was not. Anyway, I think John deserves a rebuttal to the homeschool. He deserves a voice because he's a homeschool
I'm just going to say
product.
this.
Yeah.
Consistently, homeschoolers test better and they do better in school. And then also, you're only remembering the weirdos because you don't notice the not weirdos.
Ooh, that's a really good point.
I
Yeah.
will point this out is there are weirdos in public schools and private schools too.
For sure.
You just don't.
Well, I
think
never
they're different
interacted
'cause
with
they're
them.
you.
Later in life, I met other homeschool kids that were very normal and like you couldn't tell the difference.
Exactly.
Yeah. So this has not gone at all where I thought that question was going to take us.
Yeah.
So let me just really quickly
Okay.
say something.
Yes.
Okay. So the question was, if I think I can get it right. I said I made a big deal. Like I repeated it.
Yeah.
I said, the Bible puts the responsibility for teaching children squarely on the shoulders of the parents. And I believe that's true. So what that means is, parents, you can't abdicate your responsibility to teach your parents to the public schools,
teach your kids,
or to the private schools, or to the Christian schools, or or to anybody. You can't abdicate that. You, regardless of where you're sending your kid for their education, you're still responsible for what they're learning. And I do think there is a time and a place when Christians may have to say, I can no longer in good conscience send my kid to that school, that classroom, whatever it may be, because what they're being taught there is antithetical to what I want them to believe.
Yeah.
So I think parents need to be very involved. I would say this. Parents should not be pulling their kids out of the public schools yet. That doesn't need to happen, but parents should be getting into the public schools, and parents should be getting involved and being active and being engaged in what's happening there, because their kids are their responsibility. I mean, God gives us so many great gifts, but the greatest gift of all is our kids, and we need to make sure we steward that gift well.
So see, I would see the bigger risk, and where I've seen parents take their kids out of public school is, the bullying and those kind of things that go on, and the issues with that, where I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Like, your kid is around the wrong crowd a lot, or down the wrong path. That's when I'm like, okay, like, it makes a lot of sense for you to switch from public school to homeschool, because they have a lot of great homeschool resources out there now that they didn't always have.
Right, and I'm 100% behind any parent who makes that decision for any reason.
Right,
any parent who says, as the parent, I'm choosing to educate my child this way. I support that, because that's the responsibility of the parent. And you are absolutely correct. The resources available today are so much better than what they were 20 years ago. It's not even close. And frankly, I think one of the things we learned, I'm not going to go there.
Okay. So I have another question here. What is the most important thing you said on Sunday? This seems like it might be part of that, but maybe there's something else. What's the most important thing?
Have you watched the sermon yet?
I didn't get to watch the whole thing.
You put it in double time, it'll only take you 15 minutes. You don't have 15 minutes, Steve?
I do have 15 minutes. That's a really good idea. I've never thought of that on YouTube.
Yeah, I always watch it in double time.
That's a really good idea.
Yeah.
I'm going to do
also,
that.
when you watch it in double time,
sounds really weird.
Yeah. I don't watch the music in double time. But when you watch it in double time, also, you kind of miss out on some of the stuff that I don't like, that's uncomfortable about watching yourself.
It's hard for me to watch it before the podcast, because Mondays are so crazy. Like, you get done with church on Sunday, and then Monday is just busy the whole day. So I usually watch it a little bit later.
Yeah. No, that's fine. All right. So the question is, what's the most important thing I said? I'm having a hard time with that question. Okay, I'll say this. The most important thing I said is, your children are going to be discipled, whether you do it or not. So, you need to be aware of that. You need to be intentional about it. If you want your kids to grow up to know Jesus, love Jesus, and follow Jesus, then you need to be intentional. You need to have a plan, because someone's going to disciple them.
I agree. And it just takes one kid on the bus with a cell phone to teach your kids something you don't want them to be taught.
Yep.
And there's a lot of kids, especially Springboro, the 5th grade and up ride all together in the bus. So you could have a 5th grader with a senior in high school riding the school bus.
I don't like that.
I don't like it either.
Man, if I was you,
drive them to school.
Sure. I would be asking some questions of your school board.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm going to guess there's studies out nationwide that say it's not
a good idea.
Yeah. Anyways.
Yeah. So I'm curious. There's some kids that are, like, I was talking about the bus stop the other day. So I've kind of made friends with the kids at the bus stop, because Harper wants me to go there every morning. But I started talking to them, just like, hey, what are you guys thinking about now riding to school next year with high school students? Is that, like, are you scared about that? Like, what are you thinking? and they're, just kind of talking to them. They were like, yeah, we're a little bit scared to get on the school bus with. So I'm like, I'm curious how that goes. So I'm going to keep in touch with their parents.
I think, actually, this is going to sound funny. I think the bigger danger there is the elementary kids riding with middle school kids and the middle school kids riding with high school kids. Because actually, I think for the most part, high school kids will generally look out for the well-being of the littles.
Right.
But they won't look out for the well-being of the middle schoolers.
No, they won't. It's very true. Yeah. And it's so I think the problem in Springboro is that 5th grade through, or maybe 6th grade, I'm not sure which one it is, 6th grade through high school is all essentially in the same place.
Do they have an intermediate school?
They do have an intermediate
So you got your elementary.
I think 6th grade is the intermediate school.
Okay.
Something like that. They're all in the same building. I can't remember exactly how it works.
Right. They're all up on the hill there.
They're almost all up on that hill or very close to there.
Looking down on the rest of the Miami Valley.
Yes, right.
All right.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So now that we know the most important thing on Sunday, what's something you wish you could have said, but you didn't have time to say? Because it was a very full Sunday.
It was. I I think I had as much time as I normally do. I think there's always stuff that gets cut out that you're like, boy, I really wish I could dive into this a little bit more. And I think probably what I would have liked to have spent more time on is this idea of having conversations with your kids.
Yeah.
Like what you just mentioned, right? When your kid comes home from school, they rode the bus.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for parents to say, hey, so who'd you sit with?
Yeah.
What'd you talk about?
So I feel like they don't want to talk about it when you get around. So I always try to pick times where like they're a little more relaxed, like driving somewhere. I'll ask, like a lot of times I'll have conversations with my kids in the car because they're just kind of sitting there. But when they already know that you're up to something, right when they get off school, if you start questioning about it, like they're less likely to give you an honest answer.
Well, I think you have to do it in a way, like I said, I think my point was you initiate conversations. And I think it has to feel like it's a conversation versus an interrogation.
Yeah.
Right?
I think that's where usually it feels like for the kids a lot of times.
It does. But I think it's important for parents to create a culture in the home of, hey, when I want to ask you questions, I want you to feel free. And boys and girls are different, right? You get a girl talking, she's going to talk. You get a boy talking, it may or may not last 4 words. Yeah. But I think it's really critical that parents initiate those kinds of conversations and that they learn how to use those conversations to move in a healthy direction. And maybe part of that is that parents need to be more willing to talk about their day with their kids, right? So like I'm asking my kid, hey, who'd you sit by on the bus? Maybe say, hey, I got to talk to this guy at work today and he looked funny, because he had something on his head and I didn't tell him, even though I could have.
Yeah.
Right. Something like that. I don't know, but I think when you're not having conversations with your kids, you're letting them have conversations with their phones, their screen, social media, all those kinds of things. Because again, wherever you leave holes, the world is going to fill those holes.
You have, as a parent, even though it may not feel like it at times, you have the most influence of anyone. And high schoolers were polled and even said that themselves.
Yeah.
So you have the most influence, even though it may not feel like that. And I love Brian and Molly Harriman, who go to the church, like have been very involved in just giving wisdom to our teens for a long time, and they're also involved in the public school world. So one thing I really loved that Brian said was, you just need to be a voice in everything else. Like that's what you need to be. Is you don't have to like be the only voice, because they're gonna get that. You can't create a bubble. Like it's almost actually worse to try to pull them from everything, because at some point you're not going to be able to be a voice anymore, and they're going to have those influences that you're guarding away from them. So it's okay, but it's okay then to experience things that aren't good for them, but you have to be a voice within it.
Right. We're going to talk about that in week 4 of the series, is when we talk about how to recognize truth.
Yeah.
And that really important idea of you can't hide your kids from everything forever.
Yeah, because I hear parents talking about that, of like the reason they want to pull them out of public school is because they want to shelter them and not have some of those experiences. I think that's a bad reason. Now, if there's something that's like, hey, they're getting bullied or this is actually really bad for them, then yeah, of course, 100% supportive. But if you try to take them away from everything that could possibly be harmful, then you will never have the voice when it's important.
Right. Yeah. And you have to teach them how to navigate that stuff and how to recognize it. So like the other option is if they're getting bullied, instead of pulling them out of the school, get them boxing lessons.
Yeah.
No, I'm not kidding.
Okay.
No, honestly, because a lot of kids who get bullied because
karate.
They don't karate would be great too. Yeah, they don't have the confidence to stand up for themselves. And I'm not saying they need to punch the bully in the face. Yeah. I'm not saying that, but
it gives confidence. Yeah, I would agree with that. Yeah, definitely. So to kind of piggyback on what we're talking about, we've been talking about a lot about younger kids, but like parenting doesn't end when they're done with high school.
Nope.
Right. So there's, a next stage of life, the early 20-somethings when they may be in college or just figuring out life. And then there's even another stage beyond that where they start becoming an actual adult.
Yep.
So how does being a voice in that change? Because that's kind of where you are in your parenting life.
Well, you have to gradually relinquish control, but that has to begin in middle school.
Yeah.
In fact, we'll talk about that a little bit this week in the sermon when we talk about how you begin to help your kid find their freedom and get out of the house. But you have to begin to relinquish control. You have to realize at some point they're going to make their decisions. And I go from being the person who really controls their environment to the person who tries to speak wisdom, right? And at the same time, you have to begin to navigate some of these questions of how much do I bail my kid out of their bad decisions, and how much do I let them learn from their bad decisions? And they will make bad decisions. That's the thing that's really hard is your kids are going to make bad decisions. They need to learn those lessons. I think that's what our church sign says right now. It says, teach your kids to lose.
How to lose.
How to lose.
It's a little different.
Okay, good. Teach your kids how to lose.
So you want to beat them at everything.
Right. Yeah. Well, I think it's important for kids to learn when you lose, that's the time to figure out why and figure out how to improve. And so a lot of times when the kids get older, the conversations are, well, talk to me about how you got here, right? What happened and how can you change it? And at the end of the day, you have to pray an awful lot for them. And you do everything you can to give wisdom, but you really, you move from being the person who controls the environment to the person who tries to speak wisdom into their new environment.
So when your kids come home, do they feel like they are able to just relax and be adults at home, or do they ever come home and feel like they're back as like kids again? How does that?
Well, you'd have to ask them how they feel.
So you don't have a conversation with them about that ever or anything?
I think our kids, they come home and they are who they are, right? And what they do when they come home is different. And we have a little bit of a unique situation because when they come here, this isn't where they grew up.
Right.
So if they're going to go hang out with their friends, they got to go to Michigan to do that. Right. So it's a little bit different. But I think for us, our kids are now at that point where they're adults, right? And so our interactions are, when everybody's home, it's 4 adults. And if Gabby's with Liam, it's 5 adults. And we have very much that kind of interaction with them.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So that's all the sermon questions that I have, but I did have one other question, if that's... Is that okay, John?
Yes, Steve.
This is so much fun.
Perfect. Okay, so on Sunday we celebrated your 10 years here at the Gathering, which was a little bit earlier, right? Father's Day 10 years ago was actually your first Sunday here. So what is the thing that you are most proud of in your 10 years of being here at the Gathering? Or if you don't like that question, what's the most memorable thing that in your time here in your past 10 years here at the Gathering?
Why are we still talking about this?
You don't want to talk about it at all?
This is, I told Marianne on Sunday, this is about the worst thing we could be doing on a Sunday morning. But
for you, or in general?
Yeah, just generally. Yeah. Most memorable. I guess I would say the thing, if we're going to talk about most proud of, I think it's just that I'm here. Mm-hmm. You know, it's been 10 years. Coming in. So, you know, most of the people at the gathering now weren't at the gathering when I came. There's still several, you know, but, so when you come to a church, there's always challenges, right? The biggest challenge for me is I was coming into a church where I was replacing the guy who started the church. Mm-hmm.
It's generally a very, very difficult thing.
It's a death sentence.
You don't make it very long.
No. Yeah. And so I came in with the assumption that this was a 2 to 3 year gig.
Yeah.
Because what generally,
really?
a church like that needs a transitional pastor.
Yeah.
They need somebody who can come in and who can read.
Wait a second. I came in here like year 2, so you didn't think you were going to make it longer?
Well, I had been here a while by then. I'm saying when I came. Yeah. When I came. You know, a church like that needs a transitional pastor, someone who can come in and reassure the people that, hey, it's going to be okay. You know, I know the guy who started the church that everybody loved, he left, but it's going to be okay. You're going to be okay. Who can really just kind of love on them and care for them and kind of just wipe their tears, right, and pick them up off the floor.
Yeah.
And knowing me, you would say that's not in my gift set. That is not who I am. But I understood coming in that was the assignment.
Yeah.
And so my thought really was, you know, probably 2 or 3 years. And at that point, then the church will have a better idea of who it's going to be in the future. And that's when they'll be ready to figure out
why would you sign up for that? I don't understand why you would. If you knew that was going to be the assignment, why
I didn't have any other options.
Okay. It's hard for me to believe. I don't believe that you didn't have any other options.
So do you believe in God?
I do believe in God, yes.
Do you believe that God is sovereign?
I do believe that, yes.
And that sometimes he moves things in certain ways to ensure that his will happens?
Yes.
All right, I believe all those things too.
I agree. I agree with that as well.
I mean...
Well, I definitely didn't want to move to Dayton when I
didn't
originally started talking to you.
This was not on my list, but God moved the situations in such a way that it just became really, really crystal clear that this was where he wanted me to be. And
fair enough.
I came in with the assumption that it was a short-term assignment, knowing who I was, what my gifts were. I actually kind of had this idea that that's what I was going to be for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
Was a guy who would go into churches for 2 or 3 years, help them get healthy, and then move on to the next church that needed help getting healthy. I really thought that was the assignment.
See, I had the exact
I got it wrong,
I had the
obviously.
exact opposite feeling when I got here. I thought I was going to be here forever.
What do you think now?
I still feel that. I still feel
Steve,
that
we
way.
got some news for you.
I still feel that way of like that. That's my heart. I think that I always have just wanted to, because you know, like there's nothing wrong with going from ministry to ministry because the church world needs those type of people too. But that's just not me. Mm-hmm. I'm not that person. I like people too much, and once I've built relationships, it's really hard for me to leave those relationships. So it would really have to be God prompting me and calling me to somewhere else, you know, or something else catastrophic happening.
Or John prompting you to go somewhere else.
Where would John prompt me to go?
Hawaii.
Oh, okay. Well, that might be good. I'll do that.
Did you do YWAM in Hawaii?
I did do YWAM in Hawaii.
Lucky duck.
I know.
Where else did you do YWAM?
Well, I was in India too.
You know, people are hearing us say YWAM, and they're like, what?
Well, there's quite a few people who know what YWAM is.
Oh, I know, but there's a lot of you who don't, and it's kind of a funny sounding thing.
It is.
YWAM.
Yeah, it started.
Are you going to tell them what it is?
Youth with a Mission. So it's like but it's specifically for young adults, but it's not anymore. But that was originally what it started. The guy who started it in Hawaii, and he wanted to see young people become passionate about God and about using their gifts for Him. So it's a really cool story.
It's essentially the evangelical answer to the Mormon missionary.
I
got
can,
my-
I can,
got
It's
my-
just not mandatory.
I can
I
see
got
that.
my
It's
Utah
not mandatory.
cup, so I had to make a Mormon reference.
But do they send? So like you
that Mormon
generally
coffee?
don't
It is.
like.
It's actually Highlander grog, so it's Scottish.
I think generally you do
They're
an
not allowed to drink
outreach
coffee.
like overseas somewhere. So like like in a foreign country. So I don't know if the Mormons they do
go,
that too.
They go everywhere.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. Anywhere you can ride a bike.
Yeah. Would you ever see a Christian church doing something like that?
We
requiring it?
We do YWAM.
Yeah. No, but it's like John said, it's not
a
like John said, it's not a requirement.
Yeah.
But maybe it should be.
Well, I think generally we don't do
But isn't there also so many people who can enter into heaven amongst those people and their
that's
math is
Jehovah's
off?
Witness.
The Jehovah's Witnesses? I can't keep those two
Yeah.
Like
straight.
144,000.
Yeah, there's actually a lot of
They all,
differences
you
between
also,
the
the
two.
first question they ask is, are you good at math before you enter into the faith?
At the Jehovah's
Yeah.
Witnesses do.
Apparently no.
If you are, sorry, I don't know if this
All
is
right,
going to be your
groups
thing.
we've offended today.
Lepers.
Not sure.
Homeschoolers.
Homeschoolers.
Mormons.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Jehovah's Witnesses.
Clones.
Clones.
If you're a clone, we're sorry.
I think it's time to be done.
Okay.
Are you? Did you get
I am
everything
done.
you
I
wanted
got
to
it. I got everything in there that I wanted to get in there. So thanks for spending some time with us, Matt. I guess thanks for being there and pushing buttons for us with your headphones on. John, thanks for being here too. And
Thanks, Steve.
for all of you at home watching on,
Wait, I think that
YouTube.
there's some more people we should thank.
who's that?
Like I don't know who made all this for us. We want to thank.
I want to personally.
Well, three of
take a
them
moment
are
to
in the
thank my
room
mom.
right now.
No, like we want to thank the Lumix. Is that
Lumix.
for the cameras, right? And Shure for the microphones.
That's all. It
wanna-
has to be deleted out. We're not allowed to use their.
We want to
Bid FTA
Image
for
like
every single
thank
piece of decoration.
Beans, which is the coffee shop.
You
In
got all
just
this at Bid
A
FTA.
lot of it came from Bid FTA.
all right. So thank you to Bid FTA. We appreciate you.
All right. Well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you back here next
Thank
week.
you to
for
the St.
another
Louis
great
Cardinals for sponsoring
podcast.
John's shirt.
It's because
get a
we're
win
going to
tonight.
we're going to a Reds game
FC
tonight.
We're going to a
Cincinnati.
Cardinals
Do you
game
know
tonight.
that FC Cincinnati is in first place?
I did not know that.
They beat Columbus this weekend.
I don't even
That's
know
the
what
big-
FC
the big
stands
game.
for.
Football.
Really? You didn't know that?
I didn't know that. No.
Time to be done.
Okay. See ya.